So let's start. My first question goes, could you tell me why you choose the bass as an instrument?
Well, I didn't. Someone chose it for me. I started as a guitar player. I chose guitar when I was about 14 years old. And then when I was 17 or 18, my last year of high school, my school jazz band didn't have a bass player. We had 3 guitar players and no bass players, so the teacher said, "You're playing bass?" Okay. So she handed me a bass, and then from then on I was kind of in love with the instrument.
I've read about this, and they gave you a Fender bass and flat ones on it.
They gave me a Squier.
Squier.
A Squier jazz bass, yeah, yeah. And then my first bass that I bought was like a fretless, a Warwick fretless. Okay. But then I got rid of that when I went to college.
Okay, and you said that you are more a composer than an instrumentalist, and I would be keen to know when you started to write your first own compositions.
I wrote my first song the day I started playing guitar.
Okay.
I mean, it was a terrible song. I think it used 1 note on 1 string, you know. But I just like immediately, as soon as I had an instrument, my goal was always creating something rather than like wanting to learn to actually play the instrument. Yeah, I think I've always been kind of more compositionally minded than instrumentally minded or technically minded.
But you soon got into arranging and writing scores for bigger bands.
Yeah, well, I went to college, and a lot of the music that I was interested in, that I was listening to, was like Avishai Cohen's Unity Group, or the Pat Metheny Group, or Dave Holland's Quintet, and these kind of ensemble types really intrigued me. Chick Corea's Origin Band, Gilad Atzmon. So these groups, like with kind of 1 or 2 chordal instruments, drums, bass, maybe a percussionist, and then like a horn section, they really intrigued me. I loved the textures. So I was hearing that in my head, so I was writing music like that, and I formed an ensemble like that, which actually became Snarky Puppy.
This was the nucleus, so to say. And when you compose, do you use software, or do you write by hand?
I don't do either. I actually nowadays I don't write it out at all. I just demo it. So I'll write it on an instrument, and then I'll record it into my computer, and then I just email it to everybody. And we do the sheet music after the album. Yeah, the opposite of what you would expect.
Yeah, that's really surprising.
Yeah.
On YouTube you can find millions of clones trying to copy Marcus Miller solos.
Sure.
But one of the best bass lines in my book, Sex Machine played by is one of the Brooks is one of the greatest lines. Nobody ever does it. So strange.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I play it like every night. But yeah, I mean, I think with Bootsy's bass lines, you know, there's a specific bass line that he's constantly improvising. You know, I was listening to Talking Loud and Saying Nothing last night, you know, and he's just, there's a set groove, but he's constantly improvising within it. So I think for someone to transcribe it, they'd have to really like transcribe every single measure instead of a repeated bass line, you know.
Okay, okay.
And Bootsy generally is just not really like, I think his bass playing in James's band was so understated versus Marcus's bass playing, which is really out front. I think maybe people just think of Bootsy like in the Parliament context or in the rubber band context, but my favorite playing of his is definitely with James, for sure.
Mine too. It's a wonderful blueprint for any kind of swinging, funky.
Right. Yeah, it's all about his swing. That's what inspired me the most, for sure. The most important thing as a band leader is just putting all of your musicians in the best possible position for them to succeed. You know, like knowing the strengths of everyone in your band and playing to those strengths and giving them opportunities to really highlight those strengths. You know, and also knowing on a personal level what makes them play the best. So like there's some guys that react very, very negatively to like being like yelled at or something. You know, I mean, I would never do that because that's not how I am. But like, you have to know that about people, that if you treat them a certain way, they're going to be unhappy and they're going to play a certain way. And like, so it's not just musical, but socially, you know, and personally, like kind of making everyone feel comfortable enough to express themselves.